Can I make a confession? First, let's start with a confession. You know that new song we did this weekend, Honey in the Rock? It's a cool song, right? It's a fun little song. So I heard that song in my house the first time. You know, my daughter was playing it, and I was like, man, that's dumb. And Amanda was like, why do you think that song's dumb? I was like, where does this say there's honey in the rock? That's so weird, right? Y'all don't judge me. Like, you're all looking at me, and nobody's like, my command of the Psalms is just not good enough, I guess, because I didn't know that psalm, okay? And it's in Psalm 81. And I was like, where does this say that? Like, what the heck? That's just weird. Like, I thought somebody was just trying to be cute. You know how people write songs? And they just try to be poetic and cute? I was like, oh, yeah, okay, whatever. And then I came in to work, like almost, I think it was like 2 days later. And Pastor Megan was like, hey, we should play Honey in the Rock. And I was like, that's a dumb song. Where does it say that? And she goes, in Psalms, you idiot. And I went, it's a good song. We should play that song. You know, we all have our moments, right? It's Psalm 81. It's Psalm 81:16, but let me read for you from 11 to 16 because I think it sets us up all right for this morning. But no, my people wouldn't listen. Israel did not want me around, so I let them follow their own stubborn desires, living according to their own ideas. Oh, that my people would listen to me. Oh, that Israel would follow me, walking in my paths. How quickly I would subdue their enemies. How soon my hands would be upon their foes. Those who hate the Lord would cringe before him, and they would be doomed forever. But I will feed you with the finest wheat, but I would feed you with the finest wheat, and I would satisfy you with wild honey from the rock. So the imagery that's set up here is that Israel has left God, and they're not listening to him, and because of that, their enemies are attacking them, and they're under siege, and things are not right, and things are not good, and you could imagine, right? Well, you'd have to imagine, but in a scenario like this, like they live in a really arid landscape, you know, and so you like you're so under attack you can't even farm, right? And then you can't farm, you can't, and so that all of a sudden God sends honey in this rock, like that would nourish your soul. You remember last time you went on a keto diet? I know most of y'all have, right? You did keto for like, we're gonna be generous and say you made it 3 weeks. Sorry, I don't want to call you out, but anyway, right? And then after that 3rd week, it's Friday, it's a busy day. And you buy pizza for the whole family. Why? Because you have to. It's busy, duh. And then you eat that piece of pizza and it changes your life. You know what I'm talking about. You have that slice of Little Caesars, which is just terrible pizza. But for some reason, your heart is warmed. And God worked through that $2, anyway. Right? Y'all been there. That honey from the rock would be like that times a million, right? In that moment. And it speaks to something. We have this problem. We deny God. We run from God. And we find our souls unnourished. We find our souls lost. And we find our souls broken. And this is a pattern. It's from the beginning of time, Adam and Eve, like all the way, it's to us. Like we still do this. You can know Jesus and still let your soul wander and find yourself in this place where you just need him to heal it. And that's the prayer. That's the third prayer is heal me. It's heal me. But I want to kind of box this idea in because so often when we hear about healing, where we go is we go to physical healing, right? Like I jacked up my elbow a couple weeks ago, and like there was a minute there where I still can't quite straight. Look, you can't see. If you're standing next to me, you could see. I can't straighten this arm all the way out. And so like we think of that and we go, oh, God, heal me. And you just expect my arm to just, you know. right? And that's where we go. That's where our minds go. But like, there's this thing about it. We read through especially in Acts, like there's all of these healings that happen, and we think the physical healing is the point. And then we think, well, how do we have so little faith that we don't see physical healing anymore? And like at the end of the day, the physical healing isn't the point. The physical healing is to open people's eyes so that their souls can be healed. That's where that ends. But in our world today, we live in a materialistic society. We're indoctrinated in materialism as a philosophy, as a life philosophy. And that's just how it is, right? And so what we believe in is the world that we can touch and feel and see. And we're taught that that's the ultimate. Like that's the ultimate. And we need to have facts. And like if you say something that somebody thinks is wrong, they'll be like, tell me the facts. And you'll be like, where'd you get what's your source and all of this stuff, right? And like it's gotten to the place now with the internet too, you can fact check anything one way or the other. So now this whole idea of concrete, factual, this is absolutely true, we find that being this unwavering thing. And it's kind of a blessing from God because of what it does is it sends us back to the spiritual. Because we know that it's always been true, but there's still this dissonance because what I need is healing for my soul. But what I'm taught to value most is what I can touch and feel and hold on to. Right? We're not talking this morning about physical healing. As a matter of fact, you know intrinsically that physical healing, while awesome, while important, while something we should celebrate, isn't the thing that you need most. Because we have a hierarchy of tragedy when we really think about it, right? There is a hierarchy to the way you unpack tragedy. If somebody's like 95 and they die, you're going to be sad. But you're going to be able to say, especially if they knew Jesus, you're going to be able to say they lived a good life and they're in heaven now, right? When it's someone younger, you're more upset. It hangs on more. But the worst of all is when someone close to you takes their own life, right? Why? Well, there's this sense that they died twice. Their soul died and caused them not to want to live any longer, right? And then they physically died. Like we know this to be true, right? But we still go off in a different direction and try to just focus on what's right in front of us. And you know what? Like I'm not even blaming you, right? Because the physical needs, the here and now, the specific, the provision you look for from God, like all of these things, these are louder, these are immediate, these are right in front of you. But we always think if we could just make one of these things better, life will get better. And the answer is not that. The answer is I need you to heal my soul. Right? So we're going to be in Numbers chapter 21 this morning. We're going to focus on 4 through 9, but we're going to go from 1 to 9 because 1 through 3 has a little bit of background on it. So Numbers 21. The Canaanite king of Arad, who lived in the Negev, heard that the Israelites were approaching on the road through Arathim. So he attacked the Israelites and took some of them as prisoners. Then the people of Israel made this vow to the Lord: if you will hand these people over to us, we will completely destroy all their towns. The Lord heard the Israelites' request and gave them victory over the Canaanites. The Israelites completely destroyed them and their towns, and this place has been called Hormah ever since. Then the people of Israel set out from Mount Hor, taking the road to the Red Sea to go around the land of Edom. But the people grew impatient with the long journey, and they began to speak against God and Moses. Why have you brought us out of Egypt to die here in the wilderness? They complained. There is nothing to eat here and nothing to drink, and we hate this horrible manna. So God sent poisonous snakes among the people, and many were bitten and died. The people came to Moses and cried out, we have sinned by speaking against the Lord and against you. Pray that the Lord will take away the snakes. So Moses prayed for the people. Then the Lord told him, make a replica of a poisonous snake and attach it to a pole. All who are bitten will live if they simply look at it. So Moses made a snake out of bronze and attached it to a pole. Then anyone who was bitten by a snake could look at the bronze snake and be healed. What a weird story. Right? So let's just recap. Let's walk through it. First of all, the Israelites you have to understand, they're moving. So Numbers is the story of how basically they make it from the exit of Egypt to the gates of the promised land, right? And it's a whole messed up story because the Israelites, they reject God multiple times in multiple ways, and all of these issues kind of rise up, and ultimately they don't listen to God when God sends them to the promised land, and they look and to see if they're going to go in, and they won't go because they're afraid. And then God says this generation has to pass away, and the reason for it is they keep yearning for their slavery. They keep yearning for their slavery. They keep yearning for that because it's this thing that they know. It's this problem that they know, right? And God needs them to go from this slave mentality into the mentality of his children, his people. And so he lets the generation pass away. And you see that in this story. They said, "Why did you bring us out of Egypt to take us out into this desert and feed us saltines all day? I'm kind of tired of it," right? And I mean, I'd get sick of saltines too. But the deal here is they have to get past this slavery mentality. I would suggest to you that you probably have an understanding of what's going on in their heads, right? Let me kind of explain. When I was life gets stressful, right? So when life gets stressful, sometimes, I don't know, me anyway, sometimes I get nostalgic. Usually this happens at like 12:30 in the morning, right? I stayed up too late. It's been crazy. My house doesn't get quiet till everybody goes to sleep. And so I'll just let everybody go to sleep and I'll just sit there and zonk out for a minute, right? And what'll happen on some of those nights is I'll catch myself thinking this thought, which is so insidious and jacked up, but it's where the Israelites are here. I'll catch myself thinking, man, I'll think back to a bonfire in my early 20s with a bunch of idiot dudes complaining that there are no girls there. And they're not there because we didn't invite them because we were nerds. And it worked out great for me because I met Amanda not at a bonfire. So anyway, we were sitting there, and I think back on that time, and I go, man, I was so free. I missed that. Life used to be so good. Like there are these moments when the slave to sin I used to be seems like freedom. There are these moments when the purposelessness that I used to experience, the wandering I used to experience, seems like freedom. And that's what the Israelites are not getting over. And ultimately what that is it's the sin in my life, it's the flesh in my life it's catching up to me, right? Because the fact of the matter is life used to be terrible and life's awesome now. Like I have direction, I have purpose, I have children, they're awesome. I have a wife who's awesome. Like this all is great. Like the things that matter in life are great. But sometimes my flesh takes over and I yearn for what used to be. And so that's where they're at. And so they start yelling, they're mad at God. God just gave them this victory over the Canaanites. And then they have to go around to Edom. They have to go around Edom because Edom is the land that was promised to Esau. Esau was Jacob's brother. Jacob is the father of the nation. Well, Abraham's the father of the nation of Israel, but Israel is named after Jacob. Jacob's name is changed to Israel. And so they were brothers, Esau and Jacob. And Edom is the land that was promised to Esau. And so they can't go in there. They have to go around because God's giving them that land. He's not going to send the Israelites in to fight them. So they have to go around. They get mad that they have to go around. They're tired of the manna. They're just frustrated. And then they start cursing God and they start cursing Moses. They allow themselves to get so self-absorbed that they turn God's blessings into curses. Right? Because going around Edom is a blessing. God's keeping them safe. The manna is a blessing. God's feeding them. But they're turning God's blessings into curses because of their selfishness, because of their former mindset, their mindset towards slavery. And so this all happens, and then God says, fine, I'll lift my blessing, and you can deal with the snakes. Right? Now, this part right here is a little hairy in 2024 because in 2024, God is supposed to be this big, loving, unicorn, rainbow teddy bear thing that only ever tells you it's okay, right? That's the way this is supposed to be. It's only ever okay. You're okay. It'll be fine. You'll get past this, right? But God's so much more than that. I mean, we call God the Father. That's the interaction they're having is with the God the Father, the Trinity. And so like what he's doing is he's fathering this nation, right? If you have kids, you know sometimes there are things that you let them do that you know will hurt them. Precisely because it will hurt them. Not because you hate them, but because if they don't ever experience that pain, they're going to stay that dumb. Right? I mean, like for real. There's sometimes you just let them do things. Why? What? You got to do it. The other day, I watched yesterday, my middle child, Lottie, she was trying to climb onto, we have these bar height chairs in front of our countertop, and she was trying to climb in it. And I watched her. She didn't push the chair out far enough, and she went to step on the thing, and she stepped straight up into the counter, right? I watched her do it. Well, this is a matter of self-awareness. You got to look at your surroundings. You got to see all that. But like, what's the better way to teach this lesson? For me to watch her do that, or for me to say, hey, stop, look around, observe she's not going to understand half of the words I'm saying. But she's going to remember bumping her head. In a lot of ways, that's what God's doing here. He sends a curse. What does the curse do? The curse makes them go, oh no, we screwed up. And then turn back to him. And then he does something else weird. I don't know if you caught this. They ask Moses to ask God to take the snakes away. And God says, build a bronze snake statue thing. And if they get bit, they can look at it. And they won't die. It doesn't say they will be healed. And it doesn't say God took the snakes away. What they had to do after they got bit was they had to look upon the thing that was cursing them. And by looking upon the thing that was cursing them, they would be inoculated from it. Right? Like God literally, he's making them immune to the snake venom. Right? He didn't take the problems away. So the healing in my life, a lot of times we look for it in the wrong places. So let's just list some of the wrong places. The first thing is this: the healing I need won't come from the next big win. We see that here. They had a big win, right? They had a big win. So often, they beat the Canaanites. So often, like we think in our minds, like if I could just get this next thing, if I could just do this next thing, right? Like when you're a kid, as a young man, I was like, dude, if I could just get the car I wanted, I will feel like I accomplished something and I'll be awesome. And then I got the car I wanted multiple times and wanted another one next, right? If I could just get that promotion, then life would be better. Right? Because then I'll make more money. And if I make more money, then I won't have financial struggle. And if I don't have this financial struggle, then I won't fight with my spouse. Maybe, but probably the two of you are the problem and you need to figure that out and let Jesus mediate. Right? We always convince ourselves, though, that the next big win is going to be the thing that fixes everything. It doesn't. You know how I know? Because the last one didn't. What makes you think the next one's gonna? And that's where the Israelites are at. They beat Canaan, right? And like God provided, and that should have like quelled some of the angst inside of them. And instead, they're still really easily frustrated. The next thing, the healing I need won't come from safety. In our world today, that's huge, right? That's huge. When I was a little kid, this is what they said. There were 2 rules that I remember big time from dangerous things they let me do. First one, don't run with the scissors, right? That was what they said. Don't run with the scissors. Now it's like, don't look at the scissors. Don't touch the scissors. You can use scissors when you're 33. And even then we'll have to discuss it. And you can put in an email with your mother, right? Like, don't touch the scissors. And they even got scissors now with the rounded tips, the safety scissors. Don't touch the scissors. The other one, when I was a little kid, everybody got a BB gun. We all got usually it was the little Red Ryder. You cocked it, the little lever, right? Secret about those that you should never do, young men under the age of 15, 18, 30, really, actually, is you could pretty much straight up shoot somebody with it, and it doesn't break the skin, it just hurts real bad. And the one rule when I was a kid was do not ricochet that off the ground at your friend, because you'll probably shoot him in the eyeball. It wasn't don't shoot each other. It wasn't don't ricochet it off the ground. Do you understand the world we're in now? You wouldn't have it. We don't do BB guns anymore. Much less don't shoot them. Much like, oh my gosh, right? Like, we lived in a safe world. Like, look, if you get in a fender bender today, there's a decent chance your car gets totaled because it turned into a balloon. All the airbags exploded and you float away. Right? Like, we live in a safety-obsessed world, and there is this temptation to believe that if I can just be safe, then I will just be okay. I would like to submit to you that that's not even biblical. The voice of God to Abraham is the voice of adventure. You're 70 years old, you still live with your dad. How about if you listen to me, I'll make you the father of a great nation. The voice of Jesus to the disciples, come follow me and I'll make you fishers of men. This is different than safety. We think if we can just be safe, then I'll have time to heal. If I can bubble wrap myself long enough, good enough, then I can heal and I'll be okay. The problem is what's broken is our soul. And you don't have the power to fix that. The Israelites, they were safe. They were going around Edom. They weren't engaging in a fight. They weren't engaging in a fight that God told them not to engage in. They were doing the right thing, still didn't fix it. The safety I need won't come from better self-esteem. Verse 5. And they began to speak against God and Moses. Why have you brought us out of Egypt to die here in the wilderness? There is nothing to eat here and nothing to drink, and we hate this horrible manna. So often we think that if I just have better self-esteem, if I could just see myself in a better light, then I will just be better. It's just not true, because we are willing to put ourselves in God's seat and speak to him as if we were him, and we're still jacked up. You cannot possibly esteem yourself higher than above God, right? But we esteem ourselves above God, and we still are jacked up. We tell him what we want. We tell him what to do. We tell him why he's wrong. We tell him that's what the Israelites are doing. You screwed all this up. Like, they obviously don't have a self-esteem problem. We think so often, like, if I could just think better. Like, dude, how much money? Nobody raise their hand and nobody yell a number. How much money have you spent on self-help books that left you in need of help still? How many people have become millionaires trying to convince you that if you just thought of yourself better, you'd be better? My lived experience is this. I felt good about myself skinny and young. I had a six-pack once. I don't know if you know that. I did. It's believable, right? It's not, but I did. It was amazing, too. You know how it happened? I stopped eating school lunches and instead had a fudge round and 2 chocolate milks every day. Not lying, being a 16-year-old boy is magical in that sense. If I could do that today, y'all, I'd look like Hulk Hogan right now. But it doesn't work anymore. It's just the alchemy of a 16-year-old boy's gut. But I felt good about myself skinny. I felt good about myself fat. I felt bad about myself skinny. I felt bad about myself fat. I felt good about myself broke. I felt bad about myself broke. I felt good about myself not broke. And I felt bad about myself not broke. It makes no difference. Because the problem's in here. Man, there have been times, honestly, man, some of the easiest times in my marriage, we were broke. But it was easy because we had each other and we weren't so busy that we didn't see each other. The problem is in here. We always think it's our circumstances. We always think we can outgrow it, we can outwin it, we can outrun it. We can outthink it if I just think of myself better. It doesn't fix anything. My healing begins, the healing I need will come from looking honestly at the state of my soul. The Israelites, to begin the healing process, to begin the recovery process, they have to turn and they have to look at the curse. They have to look it in the face to live through it. If you want to begin that process, you have to take an honest look at the state of your soul. The curse of sin and death lives in you. You have to look at what's left of that. What part of that are you still nourishing? What part of that are you still holding tight to? What part of that are you still giving life and breath to? You have to look at it. See, here's the problem, is oftentimes we just think if we ignore it, it will go away. But you all have a junk drawer in your house, and you know that you can ignore it, and all it'll do is fill up more. The same is true of your soul. Now, here's the cool part. It's weird. It's a weird story, right? It gets a little weirder. Y'all know John 3:16, right? Yeah, you better. Let me read you 14 and 15. Actually, let me just start at 10 to 15. Jesus replied, "You're a respected Jewish teacher, and yet you don't understand these things. I assure you," he's speaking to Nicodemus here, "I assure you that we tell you what we know and have seen, and yet yet you won't believe our testimony. But if you don't believe me when I tell you about earthly things, how can you possibly believe if I tell you about heavenly things? No one has ever gone to heaven and returned, but the Son of Man has come down from heaven." He's speaking of himself, and he says this about himself: "And as Moses lifted up the bronze snake on a pole in the wilderness, so the Son of Man must be lifted up, so everyone who believes in him will have eternal life." I don't know if you know this, but the Bible, we call it a book. It's a library. It's a library of books, and these books are interconnected. They have hyperlinks between one another. It refers back to itself often. As a matter of fact, it's self-confirming. We have prophecy from Isaiah about Jesus that's very specific and very accurate. And you may, if you're a skeptic, say, yeah, okay, so after Jesus, they changed Isaiah. No, that's not what happened at all, because we discovered the Dead Sea Scrolls that had been locked up from before Jesus to like 1950, and they had the prophecies that predicted Jesus specifically and accurately still in them. This is a book that refers to itself and confirms itself in miraculous ways. And what Jesus is saying here, it's a weird thing for Jesus to call himself, he has to be lifted up like the snake, because, in Genesis, Satan is the snake. Snakes are bad. We don't like snakes. Snakes are gross. We don't want to do snakes. Right? Like, we don't do snakes, but Jesus says like this. What's the imagery here? Well, they had to gaze upon the curse to find healing. And what Jesus is saying is like, I'll be lifted up. He will be put on a cross. And what happens on the cross is that he takes on the curse for all of us. He takes on the curse of sin and of death. And he takes that on for all of us on the cross. And he bears the weight of that. And in doing that, he proves himself to be the one true king, the good king. Because what you got to understand is, for the Israelites, you have these prophets and you have these kings, and Moses is probably the greatest prophet, and Moses kind of is in the same leadership lineage as like Saul, David, and Solomon, and all these terrible kings. The only thing that happens with the kings is they have the same responsibility basically of Moses, but then they also have the kingly responsibilities of administration and everything else, right? So a king, in terms of imagery, is supposed to be the one you can look to. It's supposed to be the one you can look at, and they set the example for God. They are God's representative to the people of Israel to be able to follow. The problem is the prophets and the kings, they all fall short. The prophets and the kings, they all screw stuff up. The prophets and the kings, they're all still messed up. And it's hard to see. But what Jesus is saying is, my sacrifice, if you look on me, if you look at the curse that I bear for you, and you see the way that I lived, you see that I am the great example and I am the healing that you need. I'm the healing that you need. The healing you need will come from looking upon the one true King and repenting. On the cross, like, this is so, you got to understand, like, we talk about it like it's abstract. Oh, he died for my sins, so then I don't sin anymore and I can be a good person. And if I'm a good person, I'll go to heaven. And it's this abstract, like, way off thing. That's not it at all. Man, look on Jesus and find immunity to sin and immunity to death. You will physically die one day, but your soul will carry on if you believe in him. You will still screw up in your life and you'll never be perfect, but he will inoculate you from sin after sin after sin if you turn and you look at him and you make a habit of repenting. This is not some far off magical spell that removed the icky from you. This is daily atonement. This is healing right now. This is grace. This is hope right now. And then the last thing, Revelation, let me not reference it wrong. Revelation 12:11. We've been harping on this a lot. Basically, we live by the blood of the Lamb and the word of our testimony. The blood of the Lamb, the sacrifice of Jesus, the example of Jesus, the healing that comes from the one true King, and the word of our testimony. The capstone of your healing is when you tell the story. It's when you tell the story of the lost, broken soul that was and the new redeemed one that is. You tell the story of how the resurrected King is resurrecting you, right? Here's my problem. A lot of us get stuck because we're not even willing to look at the brokenness. We got to move past that. We have to lay our eyes on the curse, and we have to let God point it out for us. I'm not saying write a list of all the things that are wrong. I'm not saying do's and don'ts. I'm saying, man, get in a room, get alone, drive in your car, turn the radio off, whatever it is, and say, God, show me what you want to heal. Like, actually be vulnerable. Don't be organized. Don't try to control your way to healing. Let God do what God does. And then you have to have the courage to repent and the steadfastness to repent, to turn from it, to look on him, know that he's seen it, he's been through it, he felt it, he experienced all of it, and he's gonna save you from it again. And then you have to have the steadfastness to repent. A lot of us will get here. The move from here to here is a big step. You got to make it. And then from here, this is a huge breakdown. We don't tell the story. And that's the capstone of the healing. That's where God takes the gross and the broken and turns it into something beautiful. That's what just happened right there. Tell the story. And here's the thing. We have a couple of reasons why a lot of times we don't tell the story. The first one, it has to do with our personalities. Like if you're like if you're somebody who doesn't mind talking about stuff, like you may be willing to, but you're like, I'm not sure, especially if you're socially aware, like I'm not sure that people are gonna care, right? Like why would they care about this? Like it doesn't seem like that big a deal, like you know what I mean? And we kind of doubt our way away from it. But that doesn't make any sense because all of y'all have some TV show that you make somebody listen to you talk about that you know full well they don't wanna hear it. I know the whole storyline of Ugly Betty. And I could not care less. But I love my wife. And she's going to talk about it. You know? I know who won, and I won't reveal it this time. I screwed up Megan's time watching it. But I know who won the Masked Singer last season. Because my mom talked to me about it. I won't tell you in case you're watching. But my mom talked to me. She knows I don't care. Why do I want to watch adults dressed up as stuff, singing? She still talked to me about it. Y'all don't talk to people about this stuff that is dumb. But think that they don't need to hear how Jesus lifted you from the pit? The other side of it, if you're like my mama, well, I can't brag. I can't brag. It was just Jesus. Paul talks about boasting in the Lord and what the Lord has done. Let me tell you something. God knows how screwed up you are, and God knows that you didn't do it. You just need to remember that you didn't do it too, and then you need to tell the story. I mean, dang, y'all look, some of y'all brag about how your kid scored 3 goals in soccer, but you won't talk about what Jesus did for you. Knowing full well that even if they become a pro soccer player, they're still gonna be poor. Soccer don't get you nowhere. Gotta play basketball or football. This is a poorly timed joke. But anyway, like, we'll brag about things that just are not a big deal. Like Pee Wee Sports, you should be proud of your kids, but that's not changing anybody's life. We'll talk about things that people obviously don't care about, but we talk ourselves out of telling the story. Man, you gotta tell the story. Let's pray. God, we thank you for healing. Just let us be smart enough to look for the right kind. Give us the courage. Give us the courage to turn our eyes onto the curse. Give us the courage to see what you see. Give us the courage to confront what's broken within us. And then once we do that, Lord, give us the guts to turn from it and kill whatever it is of that slave mentality that's left. Let us look on you and find hope and find healing. And let us turn from the things that would crush our souls. And then just let us brag on you because you're good. We don't have to be good. You're good. You make us better. Let us tell this story. Amen.